So I am Katie. I work at Stevenson University. So I am actually the representative for Stevenson. So my visit to QO was today. I visited earlier today. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the hows of the college application process. So giving you a little bit of perspective from someone who reads applications. I've been working at Stevenson. This is going into my 7th year. I worked at my alma mater in another state previously before that. So from my experience working with your students, looking at applications, working with QO for the past 7 years. So I'm going to talk about how do you find the best fit college. So kind of what are the colleges not only that you're going to apply to and figuring out the search process, but ultimately working through to the enrollment process. That's your ultimate goal, is starting with a certain number of schools and ending with one. And then also, how does the application process work? So some details from my side of the desk. The third how is how do I pay for college? And that's the financial aid night here, which I think is the 27th. So that's the most important question probably. So you definitely want to be back here for that night. So when you think about how do I find the best fit college, so when you look at these lists, really the first three are big picture, big conversations, and they lead into the last two bullet points, which are a little bit more specific. So for some of you, the list may be done. You have your list of schools, this is it. I'm very happy. Some of you might feel like it's a little bit more in flux, or you have some room. You might be looking at colleges now, especially as they're coming in, and maybe you find some schools that you're interested in as they come in to do the visits, or you see them at college fairs in the area. But thinking about values, and I really mean these big picture values, and this can help students. If you start very large, it can really help you get very focused, and again, not just at this point in the process, but months from now when we're leading up to May 1st, when you need to make a decision. So for students, it's thinking about what's the most important thing to you, what makes you tick, what helps you go every day. So these could be things like family. So that may mean you're looking at schools in a certain radius. Some people put a driving distance. So I only want schools that are within a certain drive away, or I'm not gonna do more than an hour flight because you are near some large airport. So I'm not gonna do more than an hour flight to a school. Or maybe you have family that live elsewhere. So maybe I'm not so concerned about going to UC Colorado because I have family in that area, but ultimately that's important to me. So my list and the schools I'm looking for are going to be defined by proximity to family. It could be your religion if you're practicing, so you may want to be looking at schools that are religious institutions. That's an option. Or you could be really researching and asking schools about the opportunities. So an example would be for students who are Jewish looking for Hallels on campus. So opportunities to have specific dining services or resident services, or just a really in-depth religious experience. So again, these big picture values, what are the most important things to you? So if you start large, it can help you get a little bit more specific. So you also need to then think about goals. Short-term and long-term. So when I talk about short-term, I really mean within the 4 years of the college experience, and the long-term is kind of the rest of the life story, the adult life. So what do you want to be doing in your college experience? And that can be a lot of different things. It could be the major. So I really only want to look at schools that offer XYZ programs. I want to do criminal justice, or nursing specifically, or a specific type of science program. So it could be academic. It often is athletic. I'm interested in playing a sport, so that's going to really narrow down the list. I want to be looking at schools that not only offer this sport, but will offer me a spot. Those can be two different things. So making sure you're getting in contact with coaches, and this is whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3. Stevenson is a Division 3 institution. Sometimes students think that that means it's open play and you can join and there's no tryouts and you don't need to be recruited, and that's just simply not the case. When you're looking at athletics, you really should consider the competitiveness of the institution. So a great example is Stevenson's lacrosse program is nationally known. We have a national championship. It is not an open enrollment team. students are being recruited earlier than their senior year of high school. So keep that in mind as you're going through the process. It could be study abroad or other specific experiences that you're looking for, again, in that short-term 4-year experience. Most institutions offer study abroad, but there are some institutions that do it extremely well and are known for it. A great example in Maryland is Goucher College. They were actually the first institution to require students to study abroad. So every Goucher Gopher studies abroad as part of their experience, whether it's for a week, a semester, or a year. So those are the things that seem pretty broad. Oh, I want to study abroad, but that can actually help you narrow down the list. And maybe specific activities or organizations, things you want to be involved with. If you're very into social justice and activism, you can start looking and asking schools about that environment on their campus, and again, think about that 4-year experience. Then you also really need to be thinking about long-term plans. So what happens the Monday after graduation? Are you starting in a graduate program? Are you starting in a job? And thinking about what's going to set you up the best for those experiences. Sometimes it's very specific. You need to do X to get into medical school, but sometimes it's very broad. There's a lot of graduate programs that don't have super specific requirements other than strong academic students. Or law school, you don't have to have a specific major to get into law schools. They're more looking at your transcript and having a well-rounded resume. For medical schools, actually, you don't have to be a science major to apply and get into medical programs. Most students do, because that tends to be their area of interest, but there's no requirement that says you have to be a biology major to get into medical school. So it's very important to do the research to understand what these goals actually mean. A great example, Stevenson offers criminal justice. It's one of our most popular majors, and we see a lot of students coming in. My goal is to become a detective. It actually takes 10 years to, at least, really, to be able to get to that point. So just knowing that having a criminal justice degree is not a guarantee that once you graduate college, you're going to become a detective. It takes time, professional experience, there are exams you need to take. So the more you know about that going into the process now, it'll just set you up for future success, and you know what the expectations are, and you know what your road looks like. So I mentioned on here, do your research. That could be my whole presentation. I just say, do your research, and then I go home. But there are so many factors that go into meeting these goals, that go into the application process. Use the resources you have available in the building, in the College and Career Center, in the counseling office. Utilize your teachers who maybe went to the institutions you're looking for, or have experience, and they know, past students who are at those institutions. So use the resources you have on campus. Obviously use the resources online through your phone. Google, especially when you're looking up careers and options in graduate schools, but also use the college reps coming in. We can kind of talk about what you're looking for, how to help you through the process, and then call us as well. We're always here to answer your questions and help you through the process. So I always like to say I'm a resource in general for the process. I also happen to be interested in enrolling students at Stevenson as well. But the last two pieces are, once you've kind of thought through the top of the list, is creating your list of must-haves and then visiting institutions. So you really should have specific criteria that you're looking for in colleges. As he said, you should be able to defend your college list. Why are you looking at these schools? And my favorite question to ask on visits, what are you looking for in a college? You should be able to answer that pretty quickly. If you don't, so you have no idea location, you will go to Hawaii Pacific. They were actually at another high school I was at today. You have no preference in size. You're going to apply to a school that has 50,000 people or 500 people. You should be able to have some must-haves. This is going to help you now. It's really going to help you when you're getting to the process of picking when you're actually going to school. You should be able to figure out specific criteria. This is why I'm looking at this institution. This is why it's going to be a good fit for me. And I always say, make sure you have multiple reasons why you're going to that institution, because anything can change and leave and go away at any point. Crappy example is athletics. There are always students who get hurt and cannot play, maybe for the rest of the season, maybe for the rest of college, before games actually start. So if you're going to a school just to play a sport, what happens when you break your ankle and that sport is no longer an option for you? Are you at a school now that you have no other interest in? That's not a good experience, and parents, you probably aren't gonna say, well, you chose that school, so that's where you are. So again, have multiple reasons why you're picking schools, because your major could change as well. You went to a school for a specific program and you take a couple classes and you realize it's not exactly what you thought, or you take a class in something else and that catches your eye a lot more, and now you realize, oh, I actually want to study this instead. So if you have multiple reasons, you have some flexibility. Visiting schools, so you should visit schools if you can twice. Now, not every school is that a possibility for, so again, if you're applying to Hawaii Pacific, if you can go, I will gladly go with you and help you on the college tour process. But can see if you can do virtual tours or talk to someone or talk to a current student. But if you're able to travel, visiting as an applicant, but also visiting again as an admitted student, because your perspective is different and the way you approach that visit is going to be completely different. When you're an applicant, the ball's in my court or the admissions office court. Yes, you've decided whether or not to apply to my institution, but we are making the decision of whether we're going to admit you. So, the decision is on us. Once you transition to an admitted student, the power is with you. And that's the ultimate choice. Where am I going to actually enroll? So you pay a little bit more close attention when you do those visits, knowing I'm the decision maker in this scenario. This is my choice. This is where I'm going to be for the next 4 years. You might ask more questions. You might hang out after visits, go to the dining hall, observe students in their natural habitats. You're going to have a different perspective. So again, try to visit twice, once in the application process and once as an admit. So I'm going to go through some of the application process. Some of the items listed on here are a repeat. That means they're important. If the counselor and a college rep is saying it, it's very, very important. But I'll also hopefully be able to give you some perspective from my side of the desk. It is important, again, to do your research. Every college can be different, even schools that use the same application. So no two coalition schools are the same, and definitely no two Common App schools are the same. And that's just, there are 700 Common Application schools, so we can't all be the same. But do your research. Another great phrase is, it depends. I'm sure your student will hear that from the counselor at some point. It depends. You've got to look at the school's website, you've got to call the college rep, or use the counselor's ability to be able to call the college rep and get specific information. So these are just all the items that could be required as part of the application process. Some of them are pretty common, and then some at the bottom are not required by every school. So a resume, this usually is a separate upload. The Common Application, the Coalition, and pretty much all college applications have a spot for activities, but some schools actually want to see a resume. Most of the teachers here, especially English teachers, can help your student or help you build a resume. If you don't have one, please Google a resume template. If you've never seen one before, 1 page for a resume. If my resume is not more than 1 page, it's high school senior's resume should not be more than 1 page either. But there are tools you can use to help build that. Again, not every school will ask for that additional. Sometimes it may be for a scholarship. So you listed your activities on the application for admission. Before the scholarship, they want an additional resume. Portfolios are interviews. Portfolios are often for design institutions or design majors. So it's usually you have to show some sort of skill to get into the program. Again, they're often design-based, like a graphic design or an art program or fashion design. Sometimes it's required for admission, or in Stevenson's case, it's not required for admission, but it is required for a scholarship review. So it is important to make those distinctions and figure out, as a student, what is required and when, and what is extra, but is still going to help me in the process, because every time you can apply for a scholarship, that helps you in the end. Sometimes you may need to do auditions, especially if it's a performance-based program. So it's not necessarily a portfolio, but you're auditioning for a theater or acting program, for a vocal performance or musical specific program. Interviews, most colleges offer them as recommended, which I'll talk about what the word recommended means. There are some schools that require them. Those are typically highly, highly selective institutions. Usually you're doing those interviews locally with alumni, sometimes with current students. They might be on break and they help schedule the interview. No matter who you're interviewing with or where you're interviewing, whether it's on the campus or at a Starbucks or at someone's office, you need to treat every person with respect in the process. Sometimes it'll, oh, they're just an alum, or they're just a current student. They may be just an alum, but as soon as you leave that interview, they call the admissions office and tell them how that interview went. So even if they don't read the file, they have a direct line to the person who does. So you need to approach every interview with thought and care and respect. Some schools will offer required interviews as part of a scholarship, and Stevenson falls into this category. So they're recommended for the admissions process, but some of our scholarships require interviews. And to touch on some of the things that students have control over, because a lot of these things, transcript, 3 years is done, you're working on your 4th year, and we do see your final high school transcript, so we do see your senior year grades at some point, and we check them, and we will call you if we have any concerns. So you definitely don't want to slide in your senior year. But most of that is already done. Test scores, those can only change unless you keep retaking tests, but your essay, your activities, and who you're choosing to write teacher letters of recommendation. As students, you have the most control over that, so you really need to put a lot of thought into how much time you're spending writing the essay. Proofread it, please. We can tell if you didn't proofread it. Oftentimes that's a note, all right, fine essay, the only problem is they didn't proofread it. I'll have no other issues with it other than I know they wrote it quickly. If I don't think you put a lot of time or thought into the application, why should I put significant time and thought into reviewing your application? They need to match up, and I need to get a sense that you care about the process, and that specifically you care enough about my institution to capitalize the letter I and to use periods and punctuations. I'm not looking for perfect grammar. I was an English major and I still struggle with semicolons and when they should be used. I'm not looking for that, but I don't want to see simple, careless mistakes. Especially students are used to texting and tweeting abbreviations. Words have full spellings. You don't have to abbreviate everything. I'd like to see the full word spelled out, but proofreading, again, the pieces you have control over, put thought into them and make sure that we can see you care about the process and care about our institutions. For activities, what are we looking for? What's important to us? We want to know what's important to you. That's the most important. That's my background music. The activity that's most important to you is most important to us. We don't want to see a fake picture of who you are as a student, because we're going to get the real person on our campus. So we need to get a sense of who you are now so we know who you will be on our college campus. Again, we're looking for good citizens. Most of the schools are going to be looking at whether the student lives there or not. Most of the time will be spent on campus, and a lot of that time will actually be spent outside of the classroom. Actual sitting in a lecture hall listening to a professor is only a small percentage of the college experience. A lot of it is outside and getting involved or studying. So we want to make sure that we also like the person who's going to be doing those things and have a sense of who you'll be outside the classroom as well as who you'll be inside the classroom. So just some ways to apply. I'll kind of go through these briefly. So the how to apply, there's a single college application, so this means the school itself just has the application. Towson is a great example, so the only way to apply to Towson is through the Towson website. And schools are very upfront about this because we want you to apply, so we're going to make sure you know how to apply to our institution. And then the next are group applications, or basically platforms. So the Common Application is the most well-known because that's over 700 colleges, and you use that as a platform to apply to institutions. Coalition is also very popular in this area because University of Maryland College Park is coalition exclusive. So that means they only use the coalition. So if you're applying to College Park, that's the only way to do it. That's a little bit smaller. I think Stevenson is not on there, so I think it's like 200 or so institutions. And then the Common Black Colleges application is smaller, it's about 53. You actually apply, very interestingly, to all 53 institutions. These are historically black institutions. You apply to all 53. You rank your top choices, but if you're a really strong student, you can actually get 53 acceptances using that platform, which I think is pretty cool. and then the deadlines below it. So some important things when you're thinking about early decision, early action, rolling, what do schools offer, what should I choose? Early decision is binding. There are sometimes ways, especially financially, to get out of an early decision binding agreement. I would not bank on that. That is never a guarantee. The college can always tell you, nope, you sign this form, and typically you actually sign an agreement that, again, this is where I'm going to go if I'm admitted, and you could show them all the financial paperwork in the world that it is not a reality, and they could still say, no, you signed this, you have to honor your word. So don't go into it thinking, oh, well, maybe I can get out of it. It is a possibility. I always say, if you have concerns, if there's any shred of doubt, you probably don't want to go the early decision route. And if it sounds crazy to you that you would do early decision and be bound to a school now in the application process, then it's not the right path or deadline to choose. Look to see if they have early action or regular decision. See what their other deadlines are. They're always going to have other deadlines. And a lot of schools that have early decision will also have early action. Usually it's offered a month later. Stevenson doesn't offer these, so this is just kind of general guidance that I've learned from my experience working at other institutions and hearing other reps. It is a great question to ask how many students, what percentage they admit from early decision or early action, and what percentage of the incoming freshman class is from early decision, early action, or regular. And if those numbers are really skewed to one direction or the other, that may shift when you're applying to that institution. If everyone admitted is in early action and every single student who enrolls is from the early action pool, then you may want to consider applying early action. If that's where most of the school's incoming class is coming from, you want to ask those questions. You also want to ask about scholarships, because sometimes it may change how much scholarship money is available or what scholarships are available. So scholarships might be available at all points throughout the process, but maybe the larger awards are only available earlier in the year. So great questions to ask reps. Stevenson falls under rolling admissions, and that just means we're always reviewing files. So essentially, once an application is complete, our turnaround time is typically within 3 weeks. So early action would be one deadline and one notification. So no matter when you applied, whether it was a month before the deadline or 2 minutes before the deadline, everyone gets a decision on one day. So either that's email drop, online notification, or a mail drop. Letters are actually put in the mail. So early action, one deadline, one notification. Rolling is constantly notifying students. So again, our turnaround is typically within 3 weeks. We don't use early action, we don't use early decision, but that doesn't mean we don't have deadlines in the fall and winter. Excuse me, all of our deadlines are related to scholarship. So if you ask me, when do I apply to Stevenson University, I'm going to tell you what scholarships are you interested in. Our first deadline is November 1st for students who are applying for full tuition. So don't think that just because a school is rolling means you have all the time in the world. You may need to apply for a certain scholarship. You may need to apply for a certain major. Some schools are open admission for everything, but specific programs, because they're more competitive, so they have specific deadlines, or scholarships have specific deadlines. So do your research, ask questions. So looking at how files are reviewed, this is going to differ from office to office, but you'll hear a lot of terms. Holistic is a great term. What does holistic mean? We're a holistic office. We like to pat ourselves on the back when we say that. That just means we're looking for the whole student. We're looking at the whole picture. So again, we're looking for that citizen on our campus. So not just who you are in the classroom, but what are you doing outside the classroom? So what are you going to contribute to our institution? How are you going to be involved on campus? What are you interested in now? What do we think you could do and contribute to our community in the future? The essay is a great way to kind of let this shine through. The list of activities and extracurriculars is obviously a great way to show what you're interested in, what you dedicated your time to. But it's not just numbers. Holistic is not a numbers game. So when I say an average weighted GPA at Stevenson is a 3.55, I'm interested in how you got that number, just not what your number is. So where did you start freshman year? Where are you finishing up? Again, it's not just looking at a number and then walking away. It's how you actually got to that point. So so really understanding who the student is as a whole. Recommended, this is a term that a lot of colleges use. Sometimes it just means required, but we're just not allowed to say required. So the best thing is to ask the counselor, do you think this means required? Should I do it? Ask yourself internally. This is especially when it comes to interviews, especially when you're putting yourself meeting with someone one-on-one. Am I comfortable in this situation? Am I comfortable asking questions about myself, talking with someone? And basically, is this going to put me in a good light, or am I going to be uncomfortable or stressed in this situation? Ask the colleges, how many people do this extra essay, or how many people do this interview? If 90% of their applicants do the interview, you want to be in that 90% of students. You don't want to be in the small percentage of students that is not going through that. So ask questions about recommended. If you're putting yourself in a good position when you have time and you're looking ahead of your deadlines and you're organized, you're going to have time to do these extra pieces, to look at an extra short response, or do an extra application for a scholarship, or schedule an interview. The more organized you are, the more time and flexibility you have in the process. So the other term is territory manager. You hear this a lot in the fall with college visits. So I'm the territory manager for Prince Orchard, or I'm the territory manager for Maryland, or Montgomery County, or sometimes the DMV area. And that means they're your go-to person at the very least. So they're the person assigned to you as a student or the family to answer your questions. Usually if you email the general email account, they'll be forwarded the contact information. They'll get your phone calls. They're your resource in the process. So pay attention when someone says they're the territory manager, and get their contact information so you know just to contact them directly, so you don't have to keep getting forwarded to them. At a lot of schools, they're sometimes the first reviewer on the application, so they read top to bottom the entire application. Sometimes they take notes and do a briefing if the school uses a committee where they have multiple people helping make the final decision. The territory manager often takes the lead in that conversation because they are trained to know the school and know the area, so they know the environment of QO. And that means things like how many advanced coursework is available here, what type of extracurriculars are available here. And oftentimes they're the person advocating for the student too, so it's their responsibility to kind of give a push to the committee. And it's good to meet these people face to face, one, so you know that I'm not scary, that I am a normal person, and I'm here to help you through the process. But again, to also have that go-to resource so you know who to go to with questions, and who to send your emails to, and who to call, and who to look for on campus as well when you come for visits. So ultimately, before my next slide, a lot of people think they have ideas of what colleges are looking for. Volunteer work, people who cure cancer, people who have perfect grades or perfect test scores. And those are all great, but ultimately, we're looking for college readiness. So we want to know you can do the work, that you're ready to do. College is a challenge, no matter where you go to school. If you go to MC, if you go to an Ivy, college is challenging. So we want to make sure that we believe that you can handle the challenge of the work. So in general, are you ready to take a step up? Are you ready to take on additional responsibilities? Because there's a lot of responsibilities that comes with going to college. Scheduling, time management, organization. It's just a very different experience than high school, which is very set and structured. This is when you do this is when you eat lunch, this is when you study, this is when you go talk to your advisors. So there's a lot of responsibility. So we want to see that students can handle that. But that could also mean specifically college readiness at the institution. And this especially comes into play at these highly, highly selective institutions. So being college ready in general is different than being college ready to go to Harvard specifically. So they're gonna have a very specific view of what college readiness means. They're looking for very specific criteria, not just academic, but again, what is the student going to bring to campus? How are they going to contribute to our campus community? So when you have the opportunity to talk to the territory manager over email, over the phone, as the student in the Career Center, what are you looking for in an applicant? Again, especially at these institutions that most colleges admit most of their students. But when you're looking at the categories where that number is reversed and they are admitting small numbers, What are your average GPAs? What does a challenging transcript look like? And really try to get them to define that. They'll say, oh, the most rigorous coursework your school offers. Well, what does that mean? Because that means something different here than it does in Fairfax County, Virginia. So try to get them to answer those questions and come prepared to ask. What is your test score ranges? What are your SAT 2 subject test ranges? If you can submit different types of subject tests, which are there ones that are going to benefit me more than others? If I submit more, will that help me in the process, or will that not make a difference? So try to see if you can get them to define college readiness in general, but also at their institution specifically. So this is my contact information. My goal was to not talk too much at you, so hopefully I achieved that. So my contact information if you have questions in general about the college application process, but obviously specifically if you have questions about Stevenson University, our programs, and our scholarships. But we also want to see if you all had questions tonight about the process, either for myself or the counselors here.